specifically in the housing sector. So, first of all, I think that housing is a very important contributor to climate change because, like, overall, we know that the 40% of world's energy is consumed in housing units or in buildings. However, this assessment is made in developed world cities, and there are very particular differences between developing world cities. So, for example, in the case of Mexico City, or whether it's very temperate. So in Mexico City, you can never find any HVAC because we don't need it. So the use of energy is really different. And so in my literature review, I saw that there is a poor understanding of the contribution of greenhouse gas emissions in developing world cities, although the world urban growth is going to happen in developing world cities. So I think that this is because it's very important to have a look in Latin American cities. And then, so urban density seems to be a very, very important factor that drives the extent to which residents use energy from commuting from houses to their jobs. And this is very important for Mexico City. Just to put it in perspective, in Mexico City we live 25 million people. So imagine this amount of people moving around to the city. And so this is Mexico City, but maybe you don't see it. So this is the border of Mexico City. Yeah, and so there are a lot of like gray figures. And this is the periphery. So the central Mexico City was very concentrated in the center. But just between 1990 to 2010, the metropolitan growth was so rapid in the periphery. But in Mexico City, actually the growth is not very important. But the policy, the housing policies were promoting houses all over the periphery without sufficient considerations of transportation, how people move, where people live, and things like this. So this kind of metropolitan growth just in the last 2 decades. So millions of houses, 6 million of new houses were built in the periphery. And then, talking about the spatial location, as I told you, it's very far away from the city. But these houses are designed to induce the use of cars. And I was doing a lot of research in that houses. And as you can see, these houses are like small. They are like 40 square meters in size, but they have a park, and they have a lot of space devoted to cars and roads. And also, they have a gated entrance. So the only thing that you can get in or get out is to cross this gateway. So it's very hard for people to move. And these houses are given to low middle income people. So very low income people don't live here. Just to have a perspective of that. So this is an example of a housing development that was promoted in the periphery. So this is just one example, and there are thousands of them around Mexico City periphery. So the only thing that you can see are houses, and the land use is only residential. It means that if you want to go to buy something, you have to get out of the housing development, and this is inducing the use of cars. Even though you don't have a car, you want to have a car to move around. So I was doing these surveys in a lot of households of that, and I estimated that 26 kilometers is the distance between this housing development and the closest subway station. It means that they are not provided. So these housing developments are disconnected to subway, to high capacity transportation systems. So what people do is to use informal buses, which are like low capacity buses. And also the response of these housing developments is to have informality. So this is tianguis, which is a kind of informal market where people sell food. So that's one of the responses that people have done in these housing developments. So can you imagine to live here and to have to walk until here to take the bus? This is kind of the inducement of having a car. And then so I use life cycle assessment to think about the use of energy in this housing development. And so I consider kind of a comprehensive thinking about energy use. And we did a lot of workshops with housing developers to understand the use of cement, steel, water in the construction phase. And also we collected a lot of surveys in households to understand how people use electricity, water. But the most important thing was our survey in thinking about how people move. So we can know, I take a bus, I drive, and the amount of time they use this kind of transportation means. And so in this case, this life cycle assessment considered the construction, as I told you, and the household, and also the infrastructure systems. So I put everything related to the extent to which use energy in housing development. And so the results were really, I don't know, let's look at this. So only the pre-use, which means manufacture of materials, construction, contribute to 8% of total greenhouse gas emissions. And the most important contributor in the pre-use phase was the production of cement, of concrete, sorry. So the use of the house, which means electricity, water, and gas, contribute to the 42% of total greenhouse gas emissions. And the most important contributor was transportation, just with 50% of these emissions. And it's important to say that these people don't have, so only the 47% of these people own a car. But because it is expected that they increase the use of cars, so these emissions are going to be more important even. So I think that it's important to have this comprehensive understanding and to measure transportation, because otherwise we're going to miss the 50% of total emissions. And so I was looking at the climate change policies in Mexico City. And so what the government is doing is just promoting a lot of efficient light bulbs and a lot of solar water heaters, which is great, but only these technologies were provided to these peripheral housing units. So these energy efficient technologies were provided to the houses that are inducing the use of cars. So almost 1 million of technologies were implemented in this housing development in just like 5 years. So in Mexico we have a lot of penetration of technology in the housing sector, and that is important to say that it's kind of affordable to purchase a solar water heater, things like that. So this is a kind of positive. And in this image, I want to illustrate more or less the reality of this housing development. So you have the solar water heater or the solar panel, but you have like the car, and people don't have places to walk, and they are induced to use that automotive transportation systems. So my conclusion is that the problem is not the promotion of energy efficient technologies on massive scale, so much as making them the federal government's sole climate focus. And so it was assumed that the use of energy efficient technologies in housing development mitigate the increase of greenhouse gas emissions, but they ignore the increase in car usage and attendant greenhouse gas emissions. And the other thing is that I think that Mexico City could become a model for climate change policy making in the housing sector in the global south if the use of technologies is used in another way. And so for my dissertation, I'm exploring. So I think that Mexico City is already developed. There are a lot of houses. So I think that you don't need to build a lot of houses in the periphery if you have so many inside. So that's why I'm kind of exploring urban planning and thinking about rehab strategies with energy efficient technologies in existing housing development that can be one way to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions in the housing sector. So my two recommendations finally are to use these technologies in the existing housing stock in Mexico City. This is an informal settlement that was built like 50 years ago that already has transportation, that is well located, that has education, that has opportunities. So I think that these technologies can be used there. So the challenge is to think about how can we finance this in another perspective. And another thing that they are doing in well is to rehab retrofit buildings in the central location of Mexico City. And they are using a lot of technologies, and they are using solar panels, they are recycling water. And I think that in these kind of things, if you think about retrofit, rehab, it's going to be very useful for the context of Mexico City. So I want to thank the support of the NSF, the University of Texas, and also Centro Mario Molina, that was the place that I got this information, and so it's my presentation.
We have plenty of time for questions, so.
Just as a point source, what are some of the other sources for greenhouse gases that are important in that very large city?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think that in Mexico City, we don't use a lot of the car in large terms. I think that the car ownership is 20 total, but they use a lot of space. So this very little amount of people that are using cars are making this city very difficult to move. So just think about me. I commute 5 hours a day just to go to my job, to my house. It was really difficult. So I think that it's a very hard question. I think that transportation is the key. So they are implemented in Mexico City, the BRT as a strategy to move people, but it's so difficult if we don't control the urban growth, because people are commuting from very, very far away locations to the city and going away. So I think that it's a kind of a urban planning strategy in some way, and the transportation.
Are waste dumps another big source of carbon emissions?
I don't think so. I think that it's the transportation primarily, because as I told you, we don't use electricity that much. Gas could be another way. So I think that, yeah, the use of electricity in housing, existing housing would be great.
Are there opportunities that you see in the periphery to improve the transit, or, as you mentioned, it's difficult to find places to shop, so could they convert some of the residential to stores are those additional recommendations, those sort of things that you have? Or?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of investigations in that. So what is gonna happen? So we have 5 million houses without efficient transportation. So I think that one of the solutions is to put, like, I don't know, it's because they are very spread. Yeah. So it's very hard to connect them. But the challenge is to connect them to the trains and to the subway station. And so the response of the people is great. So they are converting their houses in commercial things. Because if they don't have it, so they are doing that. So I think that it's a kind of rehabilitate this, but stop urban growth, and I don't know, just to solve the problem in a different way. Because the threat is that these houses are promoted and promoted and promoted. So, and you see the housing sector is promoting more in the periphery. I don't know what's going to happen if we don't stop. I think I'm not working. To the graph. was put on the LCA, and so this is the greenhouse gas impact of the housing system overall. So I just like this construction use and transportation is 50%.
Any other questions? I have a question. Now, you mentioned that the periphery is inducing more car usage. At the same time, Mexico City has the over circular, no circulation days for cars. So this policy of encouraging settlement in those peripheries versus no car, so they clash, and are there any policy changes or governmental initiatives that trying to get around this?
Yeah, so I think that the no circulation day has been very successful because there are two different governments. That's the point. So Mexico City and the Estado de Mexico is the one that is promoting the growth. So, and they are different parties, so they are kind of having these difficulties. But in terms of air quality, they have a Metropolitan Commission, and the big success is to have a 1 day off, and it applies to the periphery. But the urban planning and the air quality are not talking each other. So if we are promoting these technologies and on the other hand housing, it's not making like a lot of sense. So that's why I think that one of the findings is to have a metropolitan governance that, okay, so in Mexico City promote this, connect this, but it seems that it's connected.
Any other questions? The next